was one of those nights you'd rather forget, a chilly March evening that etched itself into my memory. But let me ask you this. Have you ever felt truly safe in your own home? Think again. Because after tonight's story, you might start questioning even the walls around you. A few years ago, I'd just gotten home from a late shift. Exhausted, I did what most of us would. I cracked open a cold beer and sank into the couch. I didn't even bother turning on the TV right away. The silence was soothing, a brief escape from the chaos of life. But peace, it never lasts. Just as I closed my eyes, the lights in my house flickered once, then pop, everything went dark. You know that eerie sound? Like the house itself has taken its last breath before plunging into darkness. I hate that sound, and yet here it was again. At first, I thought it was just another power outage. My house had a habit of doing this, or so I thought. I stepped outside to check if the neighbors were in the same boat. To my surprise, their lights were on. Great. It was just my house. But that wasn't the worst part. When I tried to go back inside, the door wouldn't budge. It was locked. Now let me ask you, have you ever felt your heart drop in an instant? Like the world shifts just a bit, and suddenly nothing feels right. That's exactly how I felt. What would you do in this situation? Would you panic? Would you try breaking a window? Trust me, I've thought of all of it since that night, but here's where things get even darker. I ran to the back door. Locked. The windows? Pitch black. No sign of movement. My wife was inside, probably asleep. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach turn. The garden hose, which I'd neatly coiled earlier, was now sprawled across the lawn. Someone had tampered with it. I sprinted to the breaker box, and that's when the realization hit me. Someone had cut the power. My blood ran cold. Desperately, I peered through the living room window, and that's when I saw them 2 flashlights darting around inside, like ghosts rummaging through my life. They were burglars, bold enough to break in while I was home. I reached for my phone, but it wasn't in my pocket. I'd left it on the couch. Pause for a second. What would you do here? Run, fight, call the cops? Let me know in the comments, because what I did next might shock you. I ran to my neighbor's house to call the police, but halfway there, a horrifying thought struck me. My wife. She was still in the house, alone and vulnerable. I grabbed a handful of rocks and dashed back, pelting them at our bedroom window. After a few tries, the window creaked open, and her sleepy face appeared. Before she could say a word, I whispered harshly, "Hide, now." She didn't hesitate. The window shut, and I sprinted back to my neighbor's place. The police arrived within minutes, but by then, it was too late. The intruders were gone, along with our valuables. But the real terror, what happened while my wife was hiding. If you think this story couldn't get any worse, you're dead wrong. What my wife told me later still sends chills down my spine. She heard them. One of them kicked open the bedroom door and stood there, breathing heavily. Then came the sound of a gun being cocked. He paused, listening. She told me she was frozen in fear, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it. I believe the sound of the rocks saved her. It spooked them just enough to keep them from searching the closet. Even now, we still live in that house, and every creak, every shadow at night reminds us of that night. Sometimes I think about what could have happened if I hadn't stepped outside, if I'd been a few seconds too late. But what about you? Would you stay in a house where something like this happened? Or would you pack up and leave, no matter the cost? Let me know, because sometimes the scariest hauntings aren't from ghosts, but from memories that never leave. This was Midnight Whispers. Until next time, stay safe, and don't let your guard down, not even in your own home.